Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to a special one of two editions of Hands on SAP Dev with me, DJ Q Macro, and the one and only, I can't believe he's here, the one and only Mr. Tom Young, our fearless leader of the Developer Advocates. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on here. Looking forward
That's
to it.
okay. Yeah, well, in fact, I should actually extend my greeting to good morning, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, because I don't even imagine what time it is over at your end. But so thank you for joining us. So good morning also to Lawrence and to Sama and to Nitesh and Antonio, your guest. Good morning, everybody. This is, like I said, a special edition of the Hands on SAP Dev show. We got one of two. This is the EMEA and APJ edition, but later on today we also have this same live stream. We're going to be doing the same thing again this evening, sort of UK European time, to catch the Americas. Lawrence, well done. Lawrence has just finished the SAP Developer News episode. Mark, good morning to you in Braunschweig in Brunswick, Germany. So, what are we going to be talking about today? What we're going to be talking about today, let me share my screen already. Desktop one, share. There we go. We are going to be digging into Joule. What is Joule? Joule is the embodiment, the anthropomorphic embodiment, let's call it that, of the generative AI features in SAP Build Code. So we're going to be digging into that today. Is that right, Tom? Are we here? Are we in the right place for that?
Yeah. Hope everybody is excited to check out Build Code. I'm wearing my Build Code t-shirt today, so I'm ready to go.
That's awesome. That's awesome. In fact, I've just realized that I have a Build Code t-shirt and I completely forgot to wear it. I'm wearing an old SAP Mentors t-shirt. There you go, 2011. So there we go. We can have like a contrast, old and new, old developer, new developer. There we go. So there we go. Okay, so what is SAP Build Code? SAP Build Code is essentially based upon SAP Business Application Studio with a ton of features for developers, including these generative AI features. Build Code went GA about a month ago now. And during this month, we've had this test drive to allow us, people like me and Tom, and people like you lot out there, to kick the tires of the generative AI facilities. These generative AI facilities are, in this case, this is what we're going to be looking at specifically for helping us build out app Node.js services. And also with the other features of SAP Build Code, there's a ton of features to help us build UIs on the front as well with Fiori elements and so on. It's pretty amazing. So we're going to look at that today. Just to give you an overview, for those of you who have gone through the test drive, basically the test drive is a mission on our trusty tutorial navigator. And the test drive consists of two tutorials. The first one we're going to skip. That's just setting it up. Basically, that is just running a booster and going and getting coffee while the booster sets things up, and you're all sorted. So I've done that already, and Tom's done that already. What we're going to have a look through, first of all, is the actual main part of the test drive. Create a full stack SAP Fiori application with Joule in SAP Build Code. I think that wins a prize as one of the longest but most beautiful titles of a tutorial I think I've come across in a while. I don't know what your thoughts are there on that, Tom, but this is what we're going to be doing, right? Any comments before we sort of dig in? In fact, I'm going to just keep flicking back to the chat. Hola Antonio is in the house, and Nabheet Madan, an old time regular from Hands on SAP Dev. Amazing, Nabheet. Good to see you. Welcome back. And Kuzik as well. Good evening to you. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Right. So, what are we doing? We're going to do this. And I asked Tom a question. I didn't even let him answer. Tom, are we on track here?
We're on track. Have at it.
Okay. Okay. So the whole idea is that this tutorial will take you through going from zero to hero in terms of playing around with Joule. Okay, and what it will do is will tell us to go to SAP Build Code. So in my trial account, everybody can have a trial account. It's all free all the time, and we get the possibility of subscribing with a free plan to the SAP Build Code application, to the SAP Build subscription, effectively. And I've clicked on that and gone straight into SAP Build, and we're in the lobby, which is maybe for some of us a fairly new concept and a new feature. It basically allows us to sort of start from templates and from learning journeys and jump here and there and everywhere. While we've been waiting to go on air, I pressed create and typed in EMEA APJ because that's what this one is. So I'm going to go in that. So I've not, nothing up my sleeve. I've no idea what's going to happen, but I'm going to go in that. And basically that's going to create as a dev space or use an existing dev space if one is appropriately available. Because remember, dev spaces in the SAP Business Application Studio are collections of specific tools for specific development scenarios. And of course, this development scenario is all about building a CAP.js application with Fiori, plus it has the Joule capabilities also. So as we're setting up, you can see already that in our perspective list of icons here, I never know what to call this thing. We have this Joule. Okay, so we've been looking at that, but check this out. Tom, have you seen this before? The storyboard? Give our listeners an idea of what this is.
I mean, it's giving you a nice graphical overview of your complete application. It separates your data model from your services, from the UI, without you necessarily having to look at the folder structure. So depending on if you like a graphical approach to looking at things, or if you like the folder structure, you can switch back and forth between the two views.
Yeah, exactly. And I know I quite like this. And also it sort of gives you hints as to what you also could do at an external resource as well. Right. Anyway, so I'm beginning to sound a little bit like like an advert for this. So I'm going to shut up and do things, right? So we've got here, create a full stack application. I've gone through here and said build application, choose SAP Build Code. I've chosen a full stack application. I've given my project name, EMEA APJ. The dev space was sort of pre-selected for me because I'd used this before. And now I'm here, and now I'm into the storyboard. Okay, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start Joule, and this is what you may have done. I'm going to copy this here so while I'm here, and what is this? This brings up sort of an access to this generative AI guide, and as you can see here, we have different sort of stages in the development process. Logically, my brain sees this in exactly the order that this is presented, right? With first of all, think about a data model and services. So we're building the overall CDS model. So what we're going to get out of here is the data models and some sample data and services. And if we want to mess around with the sample data later, generate some more, we can do that. Then we want to be able to add some application logic, i.e. build have actual Node.js code generated for us for specific custom handling of OData operations, for example, if we're building an OData service, and so on and so on and so on. But anyway, before we go any further, let's open Joule. So we've got a nice little thing here, and that prompt. So what is this prompt all about? The whole idea, unless you've been living under a rock for the past year or so, I don't know. The whole idea is that you can give a generative AI mind. What do you call it? A persona, a generative AI facility, a text prompt. And this is the text prompt that's in the tutorial. So I'm going to just paste that in verbatim. And let's just stare at that for a second. I mean, the detail of this text prompt is pretty amazing. So we're thinking about data entities. We're thinking about fields. We're thinking about bits of business as well. So we have the purchase value, reward points. We've got some rules here about the different types of the field. So let's keep an eye on the sort of the types that are generated. So this is basically, telling Joule, telling the generative AI facility the sorts of constraints we want and the general overall model. And I'm going to hit that run button. You know what? I went through this earlier this week, I think, and I just love that was quick. The anthropomorphic nature. We're giving Joule a name, and also it is thinking. Let's have a bit of fun with this. So I'm going to accept that, and what happens is that it's going to we're going to dig into having a quick look at this in a second. But when we hit accept, this is where the storyboard sort of comes more to life, right? So we've got this, suddenly we've got a better view of what the story, why, why the heck we would have a storyboard, because we can visually see in the data models. For those of you who are familiar with CAP already, you'll know that we have the sort of the DB and the persistence layer and the service layer, and then the application layer, the front end. Basically, the DB layer, the persistence layer, is this thing here, and the service layer is this thing here. In fact, we can go from basic view to detail view. That's pretty nice, actually. That's probably the night. I'm not a graphical person, but that is quite a nice depiction of what we've got. So anything to point out here, Tom? I think before we dive into the code, I think it looks pretty good.
I think you're off to a good start. It looks like it generated all correctly. That's the one thing to watch out for. Every generation can be different than the previous one with AI, and that's why there's a regenerate button. So
Yeah.
it still requires you to know what's being generated, understand it, and sometimes adjust it.
Exactly. So I'm going to just flip over to the chat to make sure nobody. Oh, good morning to Rafał in Poland. So Cassie says, "Is there a limit on how many questions I asked to Julian trial version?" Yes, there is a limit. I don't know what it is, but there is a limit. But the limit is not too small that you can't run through the test drive. The whole idea is that there's enough quota for anybody to get a trial account and run through the test drive. But you better be quick, because it's ending today. The test drive period ends today, as we've been telling people for a million times. John Murray in the house and Mohik. Hello, greetings to everyone in Germany. The storyboard approach has gone down very well with a lot of the developers I know who perhaps struggle with a bit conceptually with the bits being linked up. John Murray, good friend of mine from the old days. Welcome, and it's a great comment, actually. Yeah. So if you are struggling with the structure, yeah, this is a really nice advantage that the storyboard brings. Now, what does the tutorial tell us to do? It tells us to wait and bring that in, and then what does it say? Oh, yeah, open the sample data, right? So before we jump into the code, when we could jump into, let's look behind the curtain, right? Let's look behind the curtain. This is nothing special in terms of facilities in the SAP Business Application Studio. So it's not as if we're losing any other facilities. We can just jump back into the Explorer. And there, for those of you who, like me, who think in terms of directory structures and things, there's our familiar DB directory, serve directory, app directory. Interestingly, we've also, not necessarily through the generative AI facilities, we've already got some beautiful annotations, but we'll come to those maybe later. There's the DB, there's the schema. That's what was generated. That's what we can see in the storyboard, right? Anyway, in the storyboard, we can go and open the sample data. Because this is also where it feels quite cool in terms of, instead of really boring sample data, we get actual people. Right. I mean, have you messed around with this as well, Tom?
That's going to be in my demo part. I'll definitely show off that with some fun stuff.
Cool. In fact, that reminds me. So we're only going to go so far with the actual official test drive tutorial, because much that as we love these sorts of tutorials, Tom's got a lot cooler business case. I'm going to put that in quotes there.
Yeah.
And you'll understand why I put that in quotes. So we can add, for example, right, we can say here, I want to add 5 more rows, or 10 more, 5 more rows, bang, add. Now, that is not generative AI, that is just the facilities in SAP Build Code. But then we can go, how do I get rid of this? There we go, there, and move this out of the way. Then we can go and hit enhance. Anything with like a magic wand is clearly generative AI. That's how I remember what that is, right? So enhance, that will open Joule again, and we can then go to here and say, ooh, yeah, copy, enhance my data, blah, blah, blah. DJ has no imagination, so he's going to copy paste this thing. And here is where we can even tell Joule to, reconstrain, I've just made that word up, the data. So let's do that. And it's thinking again, anthropomorphism for the win. And what this will do is just come up with, some more CSV data. And once this is done, I think we're a quarter of an hour into the session. I think, unless there are any more questions, we'll let Tom start sharing his screen, and we'll start sort of from scratch with a lot more interesting Nothing against you, Pau. Pau did an amazing job putting these tutorials together, but a little bit more interesting sort of data scenario. You know what? I love. Anybody else notice? I've got this in my one of my one of the code jams that we give. CSV. It's not really CSV. It's sort of SSV, semicolon separated data. I love the fact that that is that. But anyway, so we go. There we go. So we got a lot more interesting data. But anyway, there's just a taster of what we can. And you know, I don't want to sort of skim over that. Already, this is a massive step up from you know what you used to do before. You know, well, let's have a quick look at the schema again, right? Interestingly, one thing I think is interesting, I don't know what your thoughts are in the chat and Tom as well, is that, you know, SAP CDS Common, which is this library of reusable types and aspects, has a UUID based key called ID, and we don't have that there. So I'm wondering whether that's deliberate or whether that's something that actually is advantageous. Now, to be fair to Joule, I'm going to guess Joule was a physicist that was born in Manchester. So I'm going to refer to Joule as a he because it was a male physicist. So you know that's just me. So I'm going to be fair on Joule. I think he is okay in using directly this UUID type. Maybe you could have defined like a local aspect here, but anyway, that's more cap stuff than we might want to play around with today. So we've got that. We've also got, by the way, before we hand over to Tom, Tom's like, DJ, shut up and let me get on with it. Service there. I mean, that's pretty cool as well. Automatic draft enablement annotations for all of the four entities. We're exposing all the four entities because why not? Because what else would we want to do for the start? And also, just like we saw in the developer keynote last year, some pretty good best practices. You know, we require authenticated user and that sort of thing. And also, rather than the standard path, which I love because I'm a nerd, you know, slash OData slash V4 slash loyalty program, we're actually experts. Joule said, no, actually, have a bit more of a human, just like me, says Joule, a human-centric path for the service. Anyway, let me just check if there's no more questions. In fact, no, let me stop sharing and let Tom start sharing. And while Tom starts sharing, I'll see if there's any questions here. Here we go. Kazi says, is it possible to build charts as well? I'm not sure what you mean by charts. Double click to exit screens.
Charts and graphs. Yeah, there are Fiori annotations for
Oh,
charts.
those sorts of charts. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So that is through the power of annotations and through the power of Fiori elements. We probably won't get onto that today, but you can dig into that yourself, of course, with SAP Build Code, because there's facilities in SAP Build Code that will also supply some amazing default annotations for you on, you know, generated cap apps. So will Joule be available in VS via VCode? VS Code, I'm assuming there. I don't think so. No, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that it's a SAP Build Code thing.
But I'm going to show that in a second how you can connect to your build code BAS environment from VS Code remote.
Exactly. So over to you, Tom.
Well, I'm going to launch my build code environment, but I'm going to start here from the command line instead of DJ launch from the BTB cockpit. So I'm going to use the HANA CLI actually here to first check which BTP environment that I'm targeting.
Maybe make
Because
that terminal a bit bigger,
yeah,
Tom.
yeah, I
Yes.
can. I'm not going to be in there real long, so it doesn't. But yeah, there.
Perfect.
That's a
Perfect.
bit bigger. So we've got a bunch of BTP accounts, but everybody on the team's got their own sub account that we work in. So I'm just going to target my sub account. Easy enough. And then I'm going to say HANA CLI BAS. That's the command shortcut for launching Business Application Studio. And now what that does when it sees that I'm a build code subscriber instead of launching directly into the Business Application Studio, it's actually going to launch instead the Build Code lobby. So exactly where DJ was a moment ago, but just another way to get there. The other thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and create a new demo application. So I'm going to say, yes, I want to create an application. You see the other things that you could be creating, either an application, process automation, or a business site. So Build Code is integrated with the rest of SAP Build capabilities here. We would have one unified lobby where we would see all our different project types. But I'm going to go ahead and say I want to build an application. And here I've got the SAP Build apps, or I've got SAP Build Code. I'm going to use SAP Build Code, and I want to create a full stack application. And I'm just going to go ahead and call this Demo 2. I've already got my my dev space up and running. So I'm going to reuse that existing dev space, and I'm going to go ahead and say create. And that'll take a couple seconds. But actually, while that's creating, because we had the question about VS Code, I thought,
Yes.
well, let's show this as well.
Cool.
I've got VS Code running here on my laptop. So you can see here VS Code running locally on my machine. And we actually have an extension for VS Code um, uh, that allows you to interact with the Business Application Studio or Build Code, as it may be in this case. So I can come here to Business Application Studio, and all I have to do is first log in. It's going to open a web browser to authenticate me. Yep, I'm logged in. And also, while we were talking there, my application finished generating, and now you see my dev spaces. So I have two different dev spaces, but here's the full stack one that is my Build Code. And actually, let me make this a little larger too. There we are. And I can go ahead and I can I can remote connect into that dev space from my VS Code. So let me go ahead and do that. It'll take a second to launch another VS Code window and remote shell into my Business Application Studio environment. You even see it's adapting the theme that VS Code is running to match the one that I have set in Business Application Studio. So actually, I can go ahead and minimize some of this other stuff, and we'll go ahead and make this bigger.
Nice.
Um,
Get some great comments and questions in the chat. Keep them coming. I'll answer those while Tom is doing this part of the demo.
yeah, is there something that that you want to talk about?
Well, there was one question about your cool looking terminal and from Nikhil, and we think it's Oh My PowerShell.
Yeah, oh my Posh 3.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't get the name right, but I knew it was to do with PowerShell and the Oh
Yep.
My Z, based on Oh My Z shell, right, or Z shell.
Yes. Yes.
One really interesting question from Nabit is, what does Joule use under the hood? Which models, some more technical details will help. Secondly, how does it perform as compared to ChatGPT, Llama? In terms of performance, I don't know. I think Tom and I have a rough idea, or maybe Tom has a better idea of what is behind the scenes. I'm not sure we're allowed to say what's behind the scenes. Actually, it's just a couple of SAP developers in Waldorf somewhere. They're just typing it really fast. No, just kidding.
No, I mean behind the scenes, it's BTP AI services. It's the AI Launchpad, because BTP provides a layer to manage your large language models. The actual large language model that we are using is the GPT model
Mhm.
via the Azure Open API, Open AI. We're using the enterprise version so it can be managed and secured, but then that's all exposed to Joule via the BTP AI services. So we're using our own AI infrastructure to bring the power of the pretty much the main industry standard large
Yeah.
language model right now, the GPT one into Joule.
I think one of the things that's overlooked here is that everything that you've just described, Tom. I'm thinking, for example, also of Copilot from GitHub, Microsoft, etc., etc. There's a huge amount of infrastructure between me typing in a prompt and getting a response back, and all that is effectively hidden for us, quite rightly so, by SAP Build Code, right?
Yeah, yeah. But just to bounce back here, now that everything's finished loading, what you see here is I'm still in my local VS Code. For instance, uh, you can see here from the little help dialog that I'm in local VS Code, and the file menu is in a little different place than Baz. But for the most part, it looks like Baz. I have the same capabilities as Baz, including the Joule extension right here in my local VS Code. But I'm connected to my remote virtual machine that's running behind the scenes in Build Code. So when I go to the command prompt, for instance, this is not my local file system. This is the file system of my dev space, and I'm still, running and debugging in the remote environment, not on my local machine. So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And I can just open my I want to open a project here, and uh, no, I want to go home.
While you're looking for that, there's another question.
Sure.
How who was it? How easy? Well, I've lost the question. Oh yeah, from Yogesh. How easy would it be to edit the model that has already been generated? Of course, again with prompts. Well, you saw an example of rejigging, regenerating stuff with Joule when we regenerated the data. But effectively, it's the same approach. You can go and say, oh, modify this and extend this model by adding a couple of extra elements to this particular entity and so on. So it's an iterative process. It's designed not it's especially not designed as a one-shot thing. Let's put it that way.
So what you see here is now I've just loaded up the same project, this demo 2 that I created initially here from the Build Code lobby, and now I've got it here um, in VS Code. Same storyboard available here. Now I haven't. This is just an empty project, so I'm right at the same spot that DJ was a couple of minutes ago when he started. Um, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come here to Joule, and let's use Joule to start our project. But instead of doing the test drive scenario, I'm going to do a little different scenario. And this is one that I've been demoing at some of the code jams we've been doing lately. This is intentionally different than the test drive, and it's one that I have a little bit of fun with, which is a superhero application. And I think it shows you really exposes like the power of tapping in
Yeah.
to the knowledge, the general knowledge base of the underlying large language model, because it's not something that we've trained it on. We've done additional training on top of the standard model to explain things like typical ERP data model scenarios, the specifics of CAP. Obviously, it understands proper syntax and things like that, but we still have this whole underlying general knowledge base as well that we can tap into. And that's what I'm going to do here with the superhero application. So I'm gonna write my prompt from scratch. So who knows what we're going to get?
Who knows?
Yeah. It's you get different things every time. But I'm going to say, please create a superhero application for me. I tend to say please.
Yeah, I like
I
it.
know
I
you don't
like it.
have to. Yeah. But if our new AI overlords do take over, I want them to know that I was polite to them. You never know. Hedge your bets. But so please create a superhero application for me. I want one main entity for superheroes and their typical attributes. Um, then two other entities, if I can spell today, one for superpowers and one for secret identities.
Excellent.
Tease.
This is a
Um,
lot more interesting than products and customers.
each yeah, each superhero can have multiple superpowers, but only one secret identity. Okay.
Okay, that's an interesting constraint. Yeah.
Yeah, because I want to see what it's going to do with that. So let's go ahead and start that thinking, and it'd take a couple seconds. But I give it that constraint on purpose because yes, and it did it correctly. This is what I wanted to demonstrate. Yes, it created a superhero entity. It gave us some typical attributes that you might find, like age, gender, description. Um,
Mhm.
but it also created two other entities, one for superpowers, and I told it that you can have many superpowers. Each superhero can have many superpowers. So it's a composition of many. And obviously, a superpower doesn't exist if the superhero doesn't exist. If the superhero stops being a superhero tomorrow, Superman is exposed to kryptonite, he loses his ability to fly. So you no longer need that superpower in the superpower database. But on
Yep.
the other hand, if Superman is no longer Superman, he's still Clark Kent. So his secret identity continues to exist. So that's only an association. And it's
I,
a single association because you can only have one secret identity. You're only one real person in real life, right?
by the
So
way, folks, if you're wondering more about the differences between compositions and associations, what they are, we have a lovely series for you, the Back to Basics on CAP. So in that series so far, we've done lots of things, including digging into associations and compositions and what they are and how they work. So check it out. I'll put the link in the description
yeah.
in the chat here.
So I think this is exactly what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and accept this, and just like you saw in DJ's demo earlier, it's gonna pop here into the storyboard, and I can see. I also like the detailed view because I like to see all my fields.
Yeah.
This is
Nice.
pretty much the application that I was hoping it would build, so I'm happy with it. Of course, if I didn't get exactly what I wanted, I could regenerate, or I could come back and edit the prompt. I could even come back and edit the prompt now and maybe say, like the other day in one of the demos, I told it, make sure that the superhero entity has at least 10 attributes, and then it generated a bunch more attributes that were quite intelligent for what I was doing. So that's all good. But for the purpose of time, I'm going to go on to the next step, which is generating the sample data. Again, similar to the earlier example, I'm going to, just give it, I'm going to edit this though. Please
Please.
generate sample data. So we'll go ahead and let that start thinking. And
I
this
wonder what would
takes,
happen if you put some kisses at the end.
I don't know. I've not tried that. Maybe we'll try that next. But I did notice this takes slightly longer, but I think it's because exactly what you're going to see here is not only did it generate good sample data
Mhm.
for my scenario, superheroes, but it correctly correlates both the secret identities and the superpowers to the particular secret identity. For instance, Captain America, his superpower is super strength, or Black Widow, which or let's say here, Thor, it's lightning manipulation, right? So correctly matches them.
Yeah, yeah.
And let's see and got their secret identities right. So, Iron Man is Tony Stark, Steve Rogers is Captain America. So looks good. Let's go ahead and accept those. And yep, gonna bring that into the sample data editor.
Mhm.
So give that a second to come up here.
We've got lots of
Oh,
questions. So what I like to do is I'll suggest
yeah,
we'll stop like 10 minutes or 5 minutes before the end and deal with those questions rather than keep interrupting here. If that's all right with you folks on the chat.
yeah. So I'm gonna say enhance here, and I'm gonna say give me three more data records from DC based superheroes. So to be fair to people who are both Marvel and DC fans, so let's see if
That's
it
not
does
Washington
that.
DC you're referring to though,
No,
I
no,
take.
DC Comics.
Okay.
So we'll let it do that for a second, and then
So we've got, while we're waiting for that, we've got Napit, who is really, really wanting to dig into the details, which I don't know about, to be honest. But we'll talk about those questions. Langchain, Llama Index, Vendor DB, relevant answers, blah blah blah. One more session going tech deep into Joule will help for sure, please. So yeah, I think maybe that would definitely be another session. But yes. Oh, by the way, Oh, now Peter's also asking about whether we've done any fine tuning on the base model. Are we building on top of OpenAI and using the concept of agents? I don't know. I don't know, but we'll find out.
So I did not get it did not do my secret identity. It only regenerated the one superheroes. So now I have some superheroes without secret identities, which it doesn't really like there. But maybe I'll just real quick here to this isn't right at all, but I'm going to go ahead and violate my rules so that it likes
That's
the
cool.
data entry. But it did what I wanted. It added some heroes from the DC universe, and I got the question. And you know what? No DC heroes. And so it
Yeah, I hear for
did
you,
fix
Phil.
that.
I hear for you.
And
Yes.
I'm gonna do one other thing here too. If you notice, I have a secret identities table, but I've also got this alias column here, and it's putting people's secret identities in the main superhero table. I don't want it to do that. I don't want to give away their secret identity. So I'm going to actually ask it to edit the data that's there and say, please change the data in the alias column uh, so that it uses a superhero code name instead of the secret identity to keep everyone safe. So we'll go ahead and submit that and let it regenerate the data, and that should come back. And I did this the other day to test this one, the secret hero code names. It came up with some interesting original uh, uh, data there. So we'll give that just a second.
That's cool. By the way, so we got one short question we can maybe think about. So Al or AI is asking AI. Ooh. So Joule is automating lots of cat-related tasks. Does it go also to the deploy stroke HDI area? No,
No.
not. Let me just say not quite, not yet. But I know the team. There was also another question about, is Joule going to be available for example, integration suite? Now I know the team generally in this area is working on bringing Joule to more areas than just generation of cat-based full stack applications. More than that, I can't say.
So this one did finish, and it did something a little different. It didn't quite understand what I said by code name because it actually took the name and combined it with the word code.
Well, that's good.
Yesterday,
It is. Yeah.
yes, yesterday I must have said nickname or some variant of the prompt, and it actually generated like a cute little short nickname for each superhero. So you see how prompt writing is really important because a little difference in wording that meant the same thing to me meant something different to the AI. But we'll go ahead and
Yeah.
go with this. But at this point, I want to show you that I can this application is ready to run basically. I can come back here to the storyboard and all right, where's my uh
So while you're looking for the storyboard, let's try and get one
yeah.
more question in the middle. So Divansh says, "Is this sample data editor extension available without Joule as well?" Well, actually, it's available within SAP Build Code. And Joule is an additional feature that's sort of joined onto that as well. Remember, I pressed that enhance button as well. So you don't need to use Joule to use this enhanced to use your sample data editor. But if you want to be able to sort of enhance that and get the data generated, then of course you need Joule as well. But basically, SAP Build Code is the answer.
Yeah. So again, so I'm ready to run this, but this is another thing that's neat to point out. Again, I'm running here locally in VS Code. So VS Code, I ran it. It's not running on my local machine. It's running in Business Application Studio. When I click open localhost, it's opening my local web browser, and it still says that it's pointing to localhost, but it's being redirected behind the scenes to go to the running application in my terminal on in build code
That is
in the cloud.
bonkers good. That is
Yeah.
bonkers good. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that cool? So like superheroes, let's go view this as a table. Oh, and I've got something wrong here. What we got an undefined no such
Ooh.
entity in service superhero app service. Well, that's
Oh, so
interesting.
let's have a look at the service definition, maybe.
Yeah, what happened there?
Superheroes. Doesn't seem to be
I
any
don't know.
errors in there. No such entity undefined in service super in the preview. Just try first of all, try and let's get the
Yeah,
data in JSON format without using the Fiori preview. See if we get that there.
it loaded.
It's done it, but that's
Yeah,
weird.
it did load. I don't know where that error came from. That's never happened to me before. But you can see it then did a successful read
Yeah,
after the
yeah,
fact.
yeah. Just go back to the red text of the error again.
Yeah.
There we go, because it's to do with the preview. Look at the first.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's in the preview itself, the
Yeah,
preview code.
that's what I
But
was saying. Let's maybe just look at the JSON.
yeah, yeah.
But
But the
that's cool.
Fiori, but the Fury app loaded correctly, which is what we wanted anyway, you know.
Yeah.
So we see our data. Um, the nice thing that it generated some annotations, so we're not just seeing like the raw initial preview. You are getting a little nicer version of the Fury UI here as well, and edit with draft support and things like that. Maybe you say, oh, the Hulk just had a birthday. Let's make him 39 years old now, and it just updated my draft. So you know, uh, yeah, let's keep the draft and go
And that's
back.
all because of the annotation that was generated for it.
Yes.
The draft enabled.
Yeah, we get all that functionality out of the box, and we're ready to um, you know, really go on with our application now.
Big question that's on my mind is: are those Hulk years or human years? No, just
Yeah. So let me actually stop here because the other thing that I wanted to do now is I want to do some application logic.
oh yes, oh
Yeah, well,
yes.
so let's do that. We're going to go into the CDS graphical modeler,
And
and
while you find your way there, let's just try and get another one in from Sheku the Stud.
sure.
Good name, Sheku the Stud. So that we can say as of now, Joule is designed only for CAP and Node.js related applications, right? And nothing on the ABAP or RAP side. At the moment, yes.
But the ABAP wrap stuff is coming here, planned to be released at the end of Q2. There's similar capabilities for the ABAP environment as well.
Yep.
So here we just go into the add logic from the graphical editor,
Yeah.
and I tell you what we want to do. We want to enhance the read operation.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take. I do want the service entity for our superheroes, and it's going to generate this superhero logic. Yep, that's
So
fine.
actually,
And
moving across here, just a quick point, sort of to extend the point that John Murray made before, for those who are still struggling or unfamiliar with the structure of CAP applications and the events and so on, this is super easy, or this makes it easier because it sort of presents it in a maybe a more understandable way. But for us, sort of hardcore text only like me, CAP developers, I can recognize that these are exactly the three phases before, on, and after that are normal in CAP event handling. And of course, we have these different standard events related to OData operations, for example.
so
So it's really nice.
I'm gonna do an on read because I'm gonna manipulate the data as it's been read. I want to do application logic. So not only does it open the editor, but then I've got the Joule assistant next to me that will write JavaScript code for me. So I think that's pretty neat. Also, I like this. I've never done this sort of structure myself of how it's linking the code, but I think this is kind of neat. Because you get the service JS, that's your bootstrap.
Yeah.
That's the code that
Yeah.
actually gets executed automatically when the service is fired. It's got all the logic to say what kind of event it is and handle that, but it broke out the where
Yeah.
I'm going to write my code into a separate little file here, the superhero logic.js, so that I can focus just on what I want to happen in that event, and I don't see necessarily all the boilerplate code that gets me into that event. I actually kind of like that, particularly for someone that's maybe not as familiar with JavaScript or with the CAP events. Yeah, it just allows you to focus, and I like that structure.
Yeah, to be honest, since seeing this for the first time when I first looked at Joule and what it was generating, I've started adopted that approach, that modular approach, for
Yeah.
my own little applications as well.
Yeah. So what I want to do here is I want to tell it, remember, if we go back and we look at our sample data real quick, um, we've got Thor in here. And Thor's 1,000 years old. And we got Wonder Woman, she's 800 years old. Well,
What?
they're both gods. That's why they're so old, because they're essentially immortal. They don't age. So what I want to do is I want some logic that looks at the age. So use the age, and if the age is greater than 500, then add uh, an immortal to the beginning of the description.
Description.
Yeah.
Nice.
So let's go ahead and have it write the JavaScript code for us. Thinking. I don't know
Thinking,
if there's
thinking, thinking.
any questions we want to cover while it's thinking,
Well,
writing the code.
my good friend Ian asks a very teasing question. So, how about wrap in BAS or within ADT? You tease, Ian.
Oh, within ADT. Um, so here we have the code. We can preview it before we bring it into our application. It's doing a for loop over the results, and for each record, it's checking if the age is greater than 500, and if it is, then it's adjusting the description by appending an immortal to the front of it. Yep, that's what I asked it to do. So
Have a
let's
look at that
go
in
ahead.
situ. Yeah.
Yeah, you can do a little error check on it here too, but we can go ahead and accept it. And it's brought it in. I like that it wrote comments as well to explain to you what it's doing, because I don't like code that if I don't know what it's doing. So that looks good. So we've added logic using Joule, and why don't we go ahead and run our application again? So we should be able to see it pick up that change. Where's my run? There's my run. Let's go ahead and start another run.
While we're starting the run, can we just have a look back at where this library module is brought in, as in the service.js, just to make sure that people can see. There we go. So this on read. So we got on line 11 there. This is basically not well, the on is replacing, right? Whatever you write with on is replacing. However, look at the return next in line 13. So all we're doing here in line 12 is calling our little bit and then passing it on to the next handler.
So let's see here. Let's go ahead and launch that.
So while we're launching that, let's have another question we can get in there. Sheku the stud. Sheku the stud. Will Joule be embedded with BAS as well for developing Fiori elements and Fiori freestyle applications as well? It will be available for developing Fiori stuff, but not in BAS. It's SAP Build Code. BAS, I mean, yeah, technically BAS is the basis of SAP Build Code, but in terms of Joule as a facility, the facility is available in SAP Build Code.
Now, look at this. I got the same thing yesterday, and I intentionally didn't correct it. The code actually has an error. Results is not iterable
Ooh, so that's in the
because
in the module that was generated.
in the logic that was generated. Yes. So let's go back there. So it's doing this for loop over results, but we're actually getting a single result passed in each time. So this is not actually correct code. But when it did it to me the other day, I actually did a regenerate. Let's just try that and see if
Okay.
it does it right the second time. Otherwise, I'll add something in my prompt to make sure that it does that right. So
So
good example. It wrote code, looked reasonable, actually wasn't totally correct. No, actually, it didn't. No, there's now an after phase function because we want to modify the result set after the read. Also, the parameters are switched. The
oh,
result parameter comes first. After,
So that comment there that you just read out, Devansh had a really good question
Yeah,
or statement. We can also do it in after read, right?
yeah,
Rather than on read and say next. Exactly. Yeah. And this
yeah.
is the sort of thing that you might want to do in an after rather than an on because you don't really want to have to think about making sure you don't clobber the entire standard handling. So after would be also a good, if in my opinion, a better place to do this.
So let's change it to enter. So what we see, no, I want to go back here, and you'll see that the service JS got changed to an after.
Mhm.
But my logic is still the same. Am I still going to have the same problem though with the iteration?
Is this because in this actual iteration we get? Remember that each there was a special
Yeah.
parameter that you could use in the callback of these event asynchronous event handlers, and if you called it each, you got them one at a time, and your function was called for each of the individual items. Whereas if you don't call it, if you didn't call it each, you got a single
Yeah.
array of stuff passed. I think that's this area, right?
Yeah, and the other day when I did regenerate, it just added the logic to check if it was an array or not, and then adjust the logic either way. Um, so yeah, let's see what it does here.
Sure it does.
Um,
Just as a time check, it's 9 minutes to go. So we'll do a little bit more, but then see if we can run through the questions we haven't dealt with yet, because I think that's really important. So Devansh says, yes, after read has each as parameter after CDS7. Exactly. So Ian says,
okay.
so we should regard SAP Build Code as a separate application to BAS, and hence Tom saying I would need to import an existing project from a Git repo to use Joule as BAS would not see it. Um,
Yeah,
if you want,
to bring it into the lobby.
yeah, exactly. There was another question about the lobby, which I've answered before. Yeah, it's the same lobby as we see in SAP Build as well.
So you can clone an existing project into your workspace and then it brings it into the lobby as well.
Yeah,
So if you had started in Baz, that would be a way to bring it in.
yeah.
Okay, so this there we are.
There we go.
And this is what I wanted. This is a little better. Although maybe I would have said it would have been even better if it had taken my if check and put it in a separate a separate logic block and instead of repeating it. But I guess there are some differences here. So but I'll go ahead and go with this. Now it's adjusted our logic and now it's safe
Oh,
for either
there,
scenario.
there we there we go. We got this that condition on line 9.
So now it works whether we get the whole result set and need to iterate it or if we're handed the each. So let's go ahead and open this in a web browser. You notice it restarted each time it made a change.
Mhm.
And let's go ahead and go to the preview. And now the data loads, and now we see on the front of our description an
Immortal.
immortal, and also Thor as an immortal.
Excellent.
So we've had Joule add some logic for us. We've seen how you still got to know what it writes, and we've iterated over it. We've adjusted the type of event, and yes, I did that on purpose. It started with one type so that we would switch to the other to show you how easy it is to change that. And preserve your logic. So yeah, this is that's pretty much where I wanted to get to. I know
Yeah,
we're nearly to the top of the hour, so we probably want to look at questions, but that's my demo.
that's really cool.
So
That's really cool.
I'll
I like
stop
that.
there.
I like that.
Yeah,
So one quick question first. I don't really understand it, but Sheikh Low is saying, please share your Starship terminal configuration. I don't know what Starship terminal is. Is it the
Starship.
terminal configuration that Tom is using in his terminal? That's the Oh My PowerShell. What's it called again, Tom?
Oh my posh.
Oh my posh, right? Oh my posh. Oh, POSH. Yes. Oh my
Yeah,
posh. So that's that. So check it out. Google Oh my posh if that's what you're referring to there, Sheikh.
yeah.
Sheku the Stud says one question: will we see the dual capability of ABAP-based applications in Build Code or ADT? I missed that. Well, I didn't miss that because Ian asked that question already. Thank you, Ian, for asking that question. We love you too. It's going to be in ADT. It's going to be in ADT. So we also got a really, where was it now? We also got a really interesting question. We don't want to shy away from any questions about, oh yeah, from Cassie. Who gets the copyright to the code that Joule is generating? That is a wonderfully philosophical question. I don't
Uh,
know the answer.
well, uh, I was reading some SAP statements on that. The person who writes the prompt owns the output of that prompt. So code generated by Joule or the underlying code assist, you own if you're the one who wrote the prompt. That's the um, that's the legal precedent. Evidently, it's so uh, the AI generator is treated no differently than a compiler or an
Yeah,
editor. It's simply
yeah,
another tool that assists you, but you are the creative element that is resulting in the output. Therefore, you own the IP as you would today using any other tool.
yeah. To be honest, there aren't any other answers I could think of that would make any sense anyway. Yeah. So a question from Naresh, is it possible to generate images as well during data generation? That's a good question.
I tried that. It does not. It cannot do that. I tried different things to ask it to generate an image, but give me the like the hex representation of it or things like that, and it basically came back and said, "I'm sorry, I can't yet generate image content."
Hmm. I think because we got some questions in between, I think unless if I've missed a question, put it in the chat again. Just because we've got a few more, we've got 4 more minutes left. Interesting to see the code get. Yeah, now it's interesting to see the code getting written. Written Divan. It absolutely is, and we desperately wanted to get to the JavaScript stage. We can also do it in after read write. It also adds. Oh, can it also add or change annotations? I think it can do some work with annotations. I've not played around with that too much. I had a go, but this was last November. So yeah, in the Fury UI, we have some facilities here. There we go. There, Tom's pointing at it exactly. Yeah, perfect.
And so
Um,
you could use Joule to generate your Fury application, give it specific requirements about things you wanted to do, like have an extra button that goes to this action and things like that, and it will generate the annotations or regenerate the annotations that are there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So Dwight just has a single word, Skynet, which I think is very appropriate. Well done,
Yeah.
well done, Dwight. But also, Dwight says, so does that mean we can blame Joule for critical Jira tickets raised from QA? I think we can. Yeah, I think we can. But as long as we're polite, we can do it. Um, so Romain says, I'm guessing in case of partners, it's the company who owns the account using Joule that owns the code generated. I mean, once you get down to that sort of part of the legal discussion, then yeah, Tom and I can't really answer that. But in terms of SAP's approach to the part where the LLM is used and the generative AI facility is triggered and code is generated from a prompt, Tom's answer still applies. How you then apply that further down the chain, downstream, as it were, then is really down to you.
And it's no different than today. If you're writing using an editor, but you work for a company or you're consulting or whatever arrangement you have of who owns the IP is
Yeah,
is the same. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I think this is partly the point that Romain was making. Yeah, exactly. So Sheku the Stud says, won't the developer's job be impacted here as development timelines would reduce? I think the jury's still out. I mean, development timelines at the outset can be reduced, but of course, it's not like you just press a button and then everything's done for you, right? So this is a facility just in the same way, in the same way that high-level languages reduced development times. Have they really reduced development times? They make things a lot more straightforward for the easier. It was this phrase, Perl makes the easy stuff easy and the hard things possible. And I think that's a way of thinking about what Joule brings to the table here.
And I'm sure I kind of do the analogy. I'm sure when people saw the first compilers, higher level compilers, the assembler programmers said, "Well, isn't this going to make it had the same questions and concerns? Oh, you're not going to need me anymore and things like that. It's just another tool to make us more efficient so we can spend our time better. We can spend more time building the application, designing it, building in the business requirements,
Yeah,
focusing on making the application work right, and less time typing the code or creating unit tests. I actually just I had it generate a unit test for me, and I think one of the cool things it did here is it's testing for exactly the logic that I
Mhm.
had it generate. It's testing to make sure that if the age is greater than a certain value, that we're getting our immortal on the front of it. So these are things like generating the unit tests. I don't want to spend my time generating unit tests or writing unit tests anyway. I want something to generate it for me. I already wrote the logic. I don't want to come back and spend extra time creating the test. It's great that it does it for me, and I can spend that time on more important things.
Absolutely. The unit test generation is my favorite part of Joule. Anyway, we're out of time. We're out of time. We've got to close at 9. We've got to close after the hour. Thank you so much for all the comments. Thank you, Tom, for being with us in the middle of the night. We'll see you all again if you wanted to go through this again and ask some more questions in another, I don't know, 8 hours, I think, or something like that. At 5 p.m. UK time, 6 p.m. Central European summertime. We're going to do this again. So we'll maybe see you again. And thanks everybody for joining. Any last words from you, Tom?
There's one last question here about, is Joule trained to generate code in other languages? Of course, on the CAP side, it supports Java as well. We focused today on the JavaScript version of CAP, though, in our demo.
Perfect. Okay, well, thanks, folks. Thanks for joining. Thanks for all your questions and comments. Absolutely brilliant. That's what makes these live streams so good. So it's goodbye from me.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Bye.